Just a brief review, and for the folks online, we're going to start off with a brief review of just kind of, once again, the history of cognitive psychology. What unit are we focused on in this module? What is the unit? Memory. So what did the behaviorists think about memory? What did the behaviorists think about memory? Not only would they not care about it, why would they not care about it? You're correct. You cannot observe memory, so why bother studying it? They always talked about learning, and even that journal article you saw from the last class, the Journal of Verbal Learning and Verbal, what was it? It was all verbal learning, and so they never talked about memory because you can't see it. But in cognitive psychology, we believe what? Mental processes exist. What else do we believe? What are some of the assumptions? Mental processes exist. Do they follow laws? Can they be measured? Yeah, we like to think that they can be measured. So today we're going to do some experiments on that. And once again, the field's problem solving. We've talked about that. Attention, language, we've talked about that. And then in this unit, it'll be the memory unit that we basically cover here. So we're going to do a little demonstration. I need you to take out and you can have it on the sheet of paper if you're taking notes on this if you want, but I'm going to do some very simple memory tasks. The first one is going to be as a group here. So what I'm going to do is I have a series of numbers, and I'm going to read these numbers kind of one at a time, do my little dual tasking, tap my foot at the same time. And as I read these numbers, I want you to listen to these numbers right on your sheet, if you would, kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. And then the idea is after I read the 10 numbers out to you, try to see if you can recall them in the order that they were actually given. People clear on that? So just either in a column or in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and write them out. And then after you listen to the 10 numbers that I say, see if you can recall them in the order that they were given. Okay? Let me give it one more second. Are you okay over there, Ashante? Take out a sheet of paper if you can. This will be good because then we got 2, 4, 6. Wait, we're missing a couple. On his way as well. But we'll be all right. 2, 4, 6, 8 is all right for us in this particular situation. So take out a sheet of paper. I'm going to read to you 10 various numbers. And after you hear these 10 numbers, simply try to recall. Actually, you can even just listen if you want, Ashante, and kind of play along with the game as we're going through it. So are you guys ready to listen to the 10 numbers? Any questions before we start this demonstration? This is not an experiment. This is just a demonstration for you. So are people ready? Okay, the numbers are the following. 2, 0, and don't write them as I'm saying them. Sorry about that. Listen to the numbers first, and then when I'm done saying the 10 numbers, then try to recall them in the serial order I gave them. So once again, 2, 0, 1, 5, 6, 1, 5, 5, 0, 4. See if you can write those numbers down in order. How are we doing? Are we done? The online class wants to know. For those of you in the online class, it's a little cold in the class. How many people in the classroom here feel like it's a little cold in here? Okay, I put a little coat on, so a little cool in here today, but that'll keep us maybe a little more awake or not. So with that being stated, let's actually go over the numbers see what you guys did, and then talk about what was supposed to happen here. So what was the first number I gave you? 2. How many people, by a show of hands, can you raise your hand if you got the number 2 right? Okay, it looks like for the online class, just about everybody got the number 2 right, and if you're playing along at home, hopefully you did the same thing. Most people get the first number right. What was the second number? 0. How many people got the 0 right? Just about everybody again. What was the third number? It was a 1. It was a 1. How many people got the number 1 correct? Just about all the hands went up again. What was the fourth number? 5. How many people got the fourth number of 5 correct? Okay, a few less hands for the fourth number, 5. That might be good to write down. The fifth number, so on the fourth number, the recall of the class kind of went down a little bit. What was the fifth number?
6.
6. How many people got the number 6? Yeah, a few less hands kind of go up on the number 6. Okay, what about the sixth number?
5. 1.
Say again? It was a 1. How many people got the sixth number as 1? Just 2 people. So the number got really, really low. What about the seventh number? What was the seventh number?
5.
It was a 5. How many people got that number right? Okay, numbers start going up again. How about the eighth number? 5 again. Show of hands. Numbers kind of went up again. The ninth number? 0. How many people got the 0 correct? Okay, and what was the last number? Say again? It was a 4. How many people got the last number correct? Just about all the hands in the class went up for the last number. So let's go over kind of the method that was going on here. And you don't necessarily have to know your results, but we'll go over how your results might map to what we were supposed to find here. What was the method given in this? I'm a very big, for a lot of these things, it'll be method, result, and meaning. What was the method? What did the instructor do in this little demonstration? This wasn't an experiment. What did I do?
You told us to get out a piece of paper and number from 1 to 10. And then you gave us some numbers to remember, but not right now.
So the idea was, the task, the method was to listen to 10 numbers. All right? Oh, the cell phone thing? Listen to 10 numbers and recall them in serial order, in the order that they were given. So that was the method. What kind of results do you think? Do you think the results that you guys had here in the class and probably online kind of matched up with what? Well, actually, let's first talk about what we had. Where was recall the highest?
In the beginning and the end.
In the beginning and at the end. Recall was the highest, and if you want to write this down for the class, at the beginning and at the end. So with recall being high at the beginning of the list, does anybody know what that is actually called? There's a name for that. It's called the primacy effect. Primacy, P-R-I-M-A-C-Y. The primacy effect. Numbers at the beginning of the list are recalled better. And what about at the end of the list? Does anybody know what that is called? That is called the recency effect. R-E-C-E-N-C-Y. The recency effect. Do you think that's what we were supposed to find? Yes, that is exactly what most researchers find. This is called the serial position experiment. It's serial position because it's one item, one at a time. And we basically find that recall tends to be very high at the beginning of the list, lower in the middle, and higher at the end. And I'm going to just draw out a little U-shaped curve here. It's the serial position curve here. The idea is, in your book might have this, recall tends to be high at the beginning, lower in the middle, and higher again at the end. Have you guys ever heard of the serial position effect? It's kind of a common thing that's probably in the textbook as well. So we know the method, we know the result. What about the meaning? What about the meaning of this? Why do we get the primacy effect? Why does the primacy effect occur? Hannah, any idea why the primacy effect occurs?
I'm guessing, but because it's at the beginning, you can repeat those numbers the most often to remember them.
Exactly the way that you're able to, the very important term to write down, you're able to consolidate it into long-term memory. Consolidation, you all right?
Yeah, it's an alarm going off.
Okay, don't worry, I have alarms going off. I woke up at 5 today. Left here at Roanoke around 5:45, got here 7:30, and then went right to my little couch in my office and meditated for a half an hour and took a nap. You always know it's a good meditation when you wake up and you're like, wait a second, where am I? Anybody had this experience before? I was like, oh, good, it was only a half an hour, I didn't miss my class. Was a little late, had some other things to do. So anyway, the primacy effect, you're able to consolidate information. The word consolidation is very important here, into long-term memory. This is called maintenance rehearsal. It's called maintenance rehearsal. You're able to consolidate it into long-term memory. How about at the end of the list? How come you're good? Lily, can I ask you, how come people tend to be good at the end of the list with the recency effect?
Because it's the last thing you heard, so it's like right in your short term.
So it's in the short-term memory and you haven't had any interference after that. So the recency effect occurs because nothing has come after that. So you need to know the method. We went over that. The result is people are better at the beginning of the list and the end of the list. Primacy and recency effect. And the meaning is you're able to consolidate into long-term memory the beginning of the list through maintenance rehearsal, and at the end of the list, it's still just active there, and so you don't lose any information. What about the middle of the list? What's going on there? Were people poor at the middle of the list? Why are people poor? Kate, why are people poor at the middle of the list?
Because the middle section doesn't have time to consolidate into long-term memory, but also it's getting interference because there's still other numbers coming after it.
Yeah, a lot of interference going on in the middle. We're going to get more into that as we continue on here. So a lot of interference in the middle of the list. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. So this situation, what we actually talked about here this was an experiment that was done that really kind of validates the idea of short-term or working memory. Are you guys familiar with the model of memory? We have sensory memory. We're not going to talk about that too much here. We have short-term memory, and then we have long-term memory. So let me ask you this as kind of a thought question. I was teaching earlier this week at Virginia Tech, and it was a class. Did I tell you how many people I have at Virginia Tech in my class there? 60. And I asked a question, and I was sitting kind of like this, and the classroom was kind of organized in this particular way. And I asked a question, and 2 people raised their hand. And they were 2 people kind of in the back corner in a diagonal, and they raised their hand. And all of a sudden, for me, it reminded me that in 10th grade, one of my good friends, still a good friend of mine, his name is Bill, we were taking a biology class. And we were the only 2 people who were paying attention in the 10th grade biology class in Edison, New Jersey. And whenever the teacher asked a question, guess what we would both do? Raise our hands. When I saw those 2 students raise their hands, guess what happened to me? I recalled something that occurred in the year, what year was that? 1981. Was that short-term memory or long-term memory going on there? Yeah, I was recalling something from long-term memory, and it was a cue for long-term memory. So this was a short-term memory experiment. So I want to finish up this particular part by talking about a couple of elements of short-term memory. First, are there differences between short-term and long-term memory? Yes, we can talk about a couple of key differences between short-term and long-term memory. Capacity. How much information can you fit in short-term memory? Not a lot of information. Often we say 5 to 9 chunks of information. I use the word chunks kind of loosely here. We used to go to Ohio State football games at the end of the night on Saturday nights. We'd see males up in the men's bathroom heaving chunks into the toilet. That's a different type of chunk. The reason I use the word chunk for you folks, though, can I, or Lily, can I give you guys this card for a second? Yep, we got it here. So can you ask me to recall the items on that? So, 201-561-5504. How did I do?
Great.
I got it great. I got it completely correct. How come I got that completely correct?
These are the numbers you used earlier, so you had to make them up earlier. They're not random.
They're not random. It's even less than not random.
Is that your phone number?
That was my phone number growing up in Edison, New Jersey. How much information, in terms of chunks, are we talking about here? For me, that number represents one chunk of information. So people tend to recall 5 to 9 chunks of information. It was kind of George Miller's 7 plus or minus 2, but 5 to 9 chunks of information. For me, how many chunks is that? One. For all of you folks, how many chunks was that? Say again?
10.
It was 10. So chunks of information. So there is a capacity. Now for you folks, after you have that number, if you don't do anything with those numbers, will it stay in your short-term memory? No. The capacity is about 10 to 15, or the duration is about 10 to 15 seconds in that situation. I don't know. So you do have access to it for 10 to 15 seconds. You can just write down. And that's kind of the nature of things. Let's see. Next we talk about codes. When you put it in your memory, what were you doing with it? What kind of code were you using to memorize that phone number? How were you trying to do it? How was I communicating with you? What was I giving you? Was it written? Was it a list? It was acoustic, so it was sound-based. So short-term memory, one of the main codes of short-term memory is what? Acoustic or sound-based. So that's one of the main codes of short-term memory. We have a sound-based code. And the key to recalling is, what do you have to do? What's the big shot word to be able to recall correctly? What's the big shot word here? You have to take the information in short term. Why are you good at the beginning of the list? Because you're able to do what? Consolidation into long-term memory. On the next test, if you just say, I was able to put it into long-term memory, you'll get some points, but the word consolidation is key here. Now, was this a chronometric situation here? Not really, but was this, I mean, we did a demo. Do you think people do experiments on this? Yeah, you can do cognitive experiments and test kind of the idea of memory here. Okay, I'm going to stop the first